what you're really investing in is people.
It's just about putting all those parts together, and that's what can help you build quite a good startup.
The successful startups I've seen, they've all had this kind of tractional magic. The market is actually pulling the startup.
Maybe there's even some anti-patterns of what you've noticed that startup founders should really be aware of when they go forward, of what works and what doesn't work if they want to enter the US market.
And if it was easy and repeatable, like you would know about it already.
Are there any lessons from startups like these in the Baltics applied to not only the Baltics, but all startups that want to maybe grow from their local market and have that global breakout?
Happy customers are your best marketers.
Happy customers are your best marketers. As someone in marketing, I know that.
Absolutely.
Hello, and welcome to Tech Effect, the podcast where we interview industry experts and leaders to share their insights on the topics and trends shaping the tech industry. My name is Josh from TestDevLab's marketing team, and today I'm joined by Ģirts Graudiņš. Ģirts is a Latvian-American technology entrepreneur who is an expert in building and running engineering teams at Silicon Valley startups, as well as an active investor in the Baltic early-stage startup ecosystem, both individually as a venture partner at Change Ventures and an investment committee member at BADideas.fund. So it's fair to say Ģirts is quite passionate about startups, investing, venture capital, and today he's joining us to share those experiences and expertise on breaking into global markets. Welcome to the show, Ģirts.
Hello, and thanks for having me.
A pleasure to have you. So guys, I thought we'd jump straight into it and take it back to the beginning, looking at your journey from engineering to startup investing. So can you tell us a bit more about your journey? What inspired you to take that first step? And did anything from your past background in tech help you make that transition into startup investing?
Absolutely. So well, first of all, I'm a Latvian-American. Though spent most of my life in the US, going on 32 years now. And from the beginning, I was a builder, a software guy, engineer. And I was always interested in startups in general. And I kind of got into the startup game from the builder-operator perspective. I spent 15 years building, running engineering teams in Silicon Valley. And along the way, I was also interested in investing. And I kind of eventually got to do it through my friendship with Andris Bērziņš. That was kind of my first foray into venture capital. I joined the second fund of Change Ventures. And then over time, kind of more and more got involved into the investing side. And here I am now.
Here you are now. What attracted you to those Baltic startups? Was that connection with Andris, or?
So that definitely helped. He was, the first real life VC that I knew in person, and we talked a lot. But I have to say, it's actually it's an important point. As I was getting into it, the prime sort of interest was, just help startups grow and support startups. And it was sort of very general, amorphous, but over time, I really zeroed in onto this Baltic thesis. And the point I want to make is that it's not sort of just rosy, hearts in your eyes, patriotism or whatever, but it actually comes from experience of working with startups, working with the people in the ecosystem, talking to founders, talking to funders as well. And so I've actually found that there's a niche, and that niche, is sort of I'm uniquely fit for the niche is uniquely fit for me. And so that's how I kind of ended up with what's my thesis now, which is Baltic roots and global ambition. And so those 4 words really summarize succinctly, what I'm about, what I believe is the success formula for Baltic startups. And like I said, that's also, my thesis.
That's good. And those initial, and because of your tech background, were those initial investments very tech focused, or was that just?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, as a founder, as an investor, it really helps to have the background and have had those years of experience of working with engineering teams, scaling companies, that that has translated, that has helped. Obviously, there's a ton of new and other skills to learn along the ways as well. But also, the network of operators, of other Baltic tech operators in the U.S., my former coworkers and so forth, funders as well, like that. All of that helps in the process.
That's good. And looking at those, a lot of to our audiences, some of them may not know this, but there are quite a few startups that have tech backgrounds that have grown into be giants. So there was Skype, there's been Salesforge, SonarWorks, Printful, Vintage, just across the Baltics. Mm-hmm. With your unique perspective on the region and the connections and what you've learned here, are there any lessons that from startups like these in the Baltics apply to not only the Baltics, but all startups that want to maybe grow from their local market and have that global breakout?
Interesting. Indeed. Well, the thing that, this is going to be kind of more specific to the Baltics, right? Because that's my thing. That's my area. I am quite bullish on the region, and this probably is not going to be news to the listeners from the region, but more for people from the outside. The things that I have to introduce to American investors, for example, it's a very attractive region. Again, I keep going back to the why, right? There's many different kind of factors that make the region have a high potential, be attractive, and so forth. Number one among those is human capital. So especially in early stage investing, pre-seed, seed, what you're really investing in is people. And so we have really great talent here regionally. And I say regionally because once you look at it from the regional perspective, you actually do have enough volume of founders. There's a lot of technical talent. The ratio of STEM students is world class. We have lots of world class universities, and so that aspect of the human capital is definitely there. And also, one selling point is that sometimes when you're talking to a large BPO or a multinational, they're coming with this kind of massive scale proposition of can we have 500 people tomorrow? No, but if you're a startup, you need 5 really good people, and you certainly have that here. And so it's a great place to do early stage startups, to validate ideas, to build things in a capital efficient manner. And so that's just the first factor. So the next factor is regulatory environment. So we consistently rank really high, and when I say we, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. I'll do the sidebar, which is we all have this ingrained, Estonians this and Lithuanians that. Forget about it. Look at it regionally; they're all up there. Yeah. They're all up there. They're all 1, 2, 3, 5. Somewhere near the very, very top in terms of ratings of kind of regulatory environment for startups. Stock options, tax incentives, all of that kind of stuff. So it's a great environment in terms of people. It's a great environment in terms of regulatory considerations, and we also do have this rich history of innovation in the region. Not talked about every day, but it goes back a ways to turn of the 20th century and throughout the 20th century. These countries have been technology hubs for a long time, and it's something that's worth doubling down So we had like all the space telecommunication stuff and radar technology, lasers, photonics. And it's kind of interesting to actually see that today's startups, for example, Lithuania, lots of photonic stuff. Guess what? Like that, there's a rich history of that kind of technology. And then, in Latvia, we had the Cybernetics Institute, right? And here we are, being really deep into computers and software and technology. So those are kind of like the three reasons why I'm really bullish on the region, and why I think it's a great place to spin up startups. So that's
no, but
that's my thesis in a nutshell.
That's good. But just looking at that, the way you evaluate the Baltic region, it applies to all startups. You take a look at your local environment, and it is about leveraging the talent you have and the resources, be it regulatory, human capital, and just evaluating like, yes, there is stuff I can use here. It's just about putting all those parts together, and that's what can help you build quite a good startup. It's about seeing the value in this place and be like, yeah, we have this, let's leverage it.
It's doubling down on what is uniquely you, on the things that make you special. And in our case, I believe, we have great talent. We have the kind of scale that sort of favors, really high value added, very expert, very niche, very technically sophisticated kinds of companies and startups.
So it's very high value, high level. They're not like necessarily in the building stage. They're all the way up in this technologically driven, taking advantage of tools and stuff.
Exactly.
And one thing you have mentioned, and you have is you're quite bullish on the Baltic region, and you have helped those Baltic startups scale in the US. So are there any rules or methods you see that are necessary for that transition? So maybe there's three things a startup or a startup founder should consider when looking for maybe the US market, or maybe there's even some anti-patterns of what you've noticed that startup founders should really be aware of when they go forward, of what works and what doesn't work when they've got this base, they've leveraged their local resources to build a really good product. Is there anything they should be aware of if they want to enter the US market? Or
Absolutely. The way I would start is by way of saying that, look, if this was sort of well understood and knowable and figured out, then you would already know about it. So the truth is, the fact is, every startup is different. Every new venture, you still do have to find your own way, right? So the history is not written. There's still potential out there. And if it was easy and repeatable, you would know about it already. But there are certain patterns that I can definitely talk to. And I think the first one to mention would be looking at the global market sort of either from day one or two, but certainly very, very early on. The anti-pattern that I see myself quite often is this sort of lily pad approach of, we're just going to really dominate Latvia, and then we're going to unlock Lithuania and so forth.
Let's jump between them.
And, the DAC and all that kind of stuff, which is, again, not everybody is the same, and there's no hard and fast rules. And perhaps for those particular startups, maybe that is the winning strategy. But it's not going to be something for certainly not in my thesis, right? No. So looking at it sort of very early on, straight up. There's also the aspect that every startup is sort of about validating or disproving hypotheses, and time matters. And so you don't end up in a situation where you're 3 years in and you burnt all this capital, and now you're just getting to the point, or you're going to try to leaving it, enter the US market. There. If that was your whole idea, right, then you shouldn't really wait 3 years to get there. So that's one aspect to think about.
Like from
the
day
other
one thinking.
Yeah, day one, have it in your mind, at least a plan, but have an understanding of how that's going to happen. And then, of course, there are types of products and services that can be global, and there's some that aren't. And I'm not here to tell you which ones are worthy and which ones are not. They're just different. And so there's probably certain startups that can be great, European focused solution that addresses a uniquely European problem, and that's fine, right? You can have businesses like that. It's just not going to be something that's for my thesis or successful in the US. So going there early and having a plan
in the back of your mind the whole time, not just being like
definitely up there as a strategy.
Yeah.
And the anti-pattern that I've seen is sort of trying to do.
You lock in on that first market, and then you go on to the next one, but you can't leave it too late. You have to think, if I'm going to go global in the long run, that's always something you need to be building in, working on.
Absolutely. And I mean, this goes to cultural things like having your webpage in English, right? Yeah. and having the product being internationalized, or just straight up targeted towards English speaking world. So those are
sort of the big ones. There. And then when you're building that product, obviously you need to keep it in the back of your mind if you're going to go global. But as you're building your product, maybe you'll figure this out later as you go through it. Is there any sort of situation where when you're building a product, you need to acknowledge whether it's going to be like a local fit or whether this is a product that can go international? Because there's some products that will meet a domestic need, whereas some, this is not just a Latvian or Estonian or Lithuanian need, it is a global need, and everyone can use this.
Yep, exactly. And so on that front, there's another kind of, we're kind of getting to the product market fit. I think the through line to, and this is going to probably sound like a tautology, but the through line I've seen for these, successful startups, is that yes, there's pivots and there's all these different battles and surviving, but the successful startups I've seen, they've all had a little bit of this kind of tractional magic, where the market is actually pulling the startup, where you see, maybe you can't quite figure out what exactly it is, but like the people they want something from you, they're demanding things from you, and so having some of that market pull is very, very important, and you got to watch for it, right? And so I guess what the flip side of it is, this is going to be kind of a two-sided lesson, right? I've seen it both ways, right? Like there's by definition, every successful startup story will be of this kind of, we struggled and we never gave up and we never gave up and we made, and we were successful.
Willed it into existence.
You kind of willed it, exactly. And so, but that's just survivorship bias, right? Right. Because they're alive, right? All their struggles are justified, right? But that's probably not the only reason, right? They are alive, right? And so the flip side of that one is that kind of something that I've seen, having been a part of many startups now, is that the startup life is a lot of work, grueling, grind, right? There's a lot of effort, and the sort of the challenge, I guess, or the irony of it is that we're all working really hard, and just as hard for the startup that's going to be successful as we are for the one that's not going to be successful.
It's not just willpower alone that can make something work.
So you have to kind of also be careful about, if it's really not happening, you can probably tell, and you could be using that same amount of energy towards something that is successful, right? And so I guess what I'm highlighting is that it's really, there's two different lessons here, right? And they're somewhat in tension, right? Because one lesson is always, and that's the popular one, right? Never give up, never surrender, keep grinding, just
keep driving, you'll get there.
Right, you'll get there. And I do wonder that sometimes, like, maybe we're encouraging people to just waste their time.
You take a step back and be like, is all this effort going into something productive?
And is there some pull? Is there something? Is there some there? Because at least for my part, the places where the things that have been successful, it's always been like successful despite the company themselves, like that the customers have really pulled it out of the company. It's usually there's demand, there's like requests, they're like, can we have this yesterday? Build it for us. We need this. We'll even pay you money. Right? That's usually a good sign. Or like, we'll pay more. Just do it. Just give it to us, right? And that's a usual. That's when you have that. That's like, okay, we got something here.
And I guess part of checking that is, and you'll know this from your time working in tech, is a large part of that is probably customer feedback loops. Exactly. If you're getting feedback from your customer, we like this product, we want this product, can you do this, can you do that? That's the pull that lets you know that there is demand, what I'm working is good. And if you're not seeing that,
yes, absolutely, definitely. That's a classical anti-pattern of, oh no, it's not ready yet. We can't release it, and we got to build this one more thing, and then we'll give it to the users, right? Like all of these kind of attitudes. You have to kind of keep yourself in check, and then yes, absolutely, talk to your users often, early, as much as you can. That's really the place to
make sure they're building it in,
to learn.
Because not only then, if you have these early takers and they like your product and you actively communicate with them, they will both like your product, use it more, but then they become advocates for your product in a way. They will say, oh, there's this great app. And then from there, sort of the pull can grow if there is real demand there. And that's a really good signal. If you have one set of happy customers and you work with them, you feed that pull in a way, you head towards that pull because you've got it in the back of your mind. This can go global and you work in that way. Then it sort of is a snowball effect of, well, this person uses it and that person uses it. And then they're like, oh, have you tried this thing? We should try that. And then
happy customers are your best marketers.
Happy customers are your best marketers. As someone in marketing, I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Do not underestimate word of mouth.
And to that, like, since we're on the topic, I'm just going to kind of slice it in here. There's another kind of thing to note, which is KPIs, right? And you're getting back to product market fit and just traction. There's KPIs that matter, and then there's KPIs that are like, cool story, bro.
Cool story.
And usually it has to deal with just like counts of things, right? We have this many, I don't know, people on the wait list, or we have this many signups or what have you. You kind of really have to separate what is real and what is sort of, you mentioned vanity, but just sort of fluffy metrics, right? And most often it comes down to like who's actually willing to pay.
Who's willing to pay at the end of the day.
Are they converting? Are they coming back? If it's a free product, right? Like, are they coming back? Are they daily users? Is it recurring users, et cetera? Is there ultimately, the thing you're trying to get to is, are these people deriving value from
what you're making,
what it is you're making, right? And the reason I'm saying it that way, right? Maybe it's not something that they do every day, but if it's a birthday related product, like maybe it's once a year, but like that's
still a yearly reoccurring.
It is still, they are still deriving value from it. Yeah. And that's kind of how you have to suss that one out. But yeah, revenue opens all doors. Revenue does. I was lifts all boats.
Lifts all boats. I was going to ask this later, but I'll bring it up now just because it fits in quite well. What are the most common ways maybe startups fool themselves into thinking they have that product market fit? And as you said, how can, when you're looking at those KPIs, distinguish between real traction and just vanity metrics? As you said, we said someone would sign up, but there's a difference between someone saying, I intend to do this, and paying you money and doing it.
Right. And so the things, I can just kind of mention a few things I've seen personally that are of that ilk, but stuff like, waitlist numbers, right? Like, we have this many people sign up for a waitlist. Like, great. That tells me exactly nothing. It just, at most, it tells me how good you are at making lists, right?
Yeah. You've got great marketing, but
right. So that's one. Then letters of intent and stuff like that, which great. It is some signal, but it's really not the signal that you really need. So those kind of things, you have to take with a grain of salt. Yeah. And so that therefore, that's what I'm saying. The revenue, actual revenue is the thing that matters. And there's like this hack, which I'm sure everybody's heard of, but like some sort of like fake conversion pages where like they actually you pretend to take their credit card number or whatever, right? And then the next page you're like, oh, sorry, it didn't go through, but like at least that gives you a proof that somebody was willing to pay for your product. Stuff like that. I guess that's better than just waiting list items or
waiting list items. That's quite important as a startup because both it's talking to VCs rather. It's both talking to VCs, but if you are talking to someone who is an angel investor or involved in venture capital, they will see through vanity metrics. They're not new to the game. They're not just someone's uncle you're asking for money. They know what they're doing. They have criteria. They themselves evaluate, they check, and they will be able to see vanity metrics when you show them vanity metrics. And at the same time, it's important for a startup founder and their teams to acknowledge, well, this is a good, like, we're building interest, we're building that. But if you're not going through to that sort of bottom line of a business of people are willing to pay for this service, people want to use a service, it's not just I like the idea of it, it's I'm ready to use this, I'm ready to see this develop, this will be part of my life. So it's important to be honest with yourself in a way and fully understand what is bringing you money, what is good awareness. And that also flows through into if you are a pre-seed or a seed company looking to scale or grow or get any investment, you can't seriously go to any investment fund or any investment individual or anyone invested as an angel investor in a big company and expect them to jump on vanity metrics. And you also, going forward, you can get any money and you scale forward, but if you weren't able to get that real pull signal identified as people willing to pay for something, it's not really the signal that you want or need, and you will still struggle. And as you said at the start, you'll put a lot of effort into something and you'll drive through and you'll never give up, but you won't be getting anywhere.
Yeah. I just kind of realized for myself, so I'll repeat it as well. This paying signal it's about people perceiving value, right? Like that's the thing that's the ultimate thing, is that somebody sees value, you're delivering value for somebody, and you got to deliver value for somebody, right? To exist,
to come back. And even again, as you said, if it's a birthday thing and they come back once a year, if they saw the value on birthday one, they kind of come back for another birthday. And it's not about so much timeline, just you are seeing a reoccurring user or people actively wanting and sharing your product and your startup idea with others.
Yep.
And that'll also, I guess, help you when you go to VC level, asking for money. You're like, people are interested.
Yeah.
So I guess on that way, in a way, you've, as I mentioned, invested and helped scale several startups now, and you are an investment committee member on the BADideas.fund. But the name does suggest you're willing to back some unconventional ideas, and it is about finding a signal. But has there ever been a situation where you've seen like a bad idea, but it turned out to be brilliant, and the startup team really knew what they were onto? Maybe they were just at the forefront of something, or anything.
Sure. It's a very broad topic, but you brought it up. I guess that, by context, right? So bad ideas, the meaning comes from the saying that I think it's like Paul Graham or somebody. Every startup initially was a bad idea, right? Yeah. We are certainly looking for those, contrarian bets and so forth. And the other kind of theme with that is that in investing, in startup investing, right? There's ways to filter out things that are, clearly a clear no, right? But even after you kind of take care of all of that, eventually, you get, as you start sifting through and removing more and more and more, what you're left with they are bets, right? Like there are no sure things. There's just degrees of certainty and degrees of likelihood. And so, also there's this theme of willing things into existence. One thing that just as you mentioned this topic, right? One particular startup comes to mind. It's not a bad idea. It's a portfolio company, but Uber, right? Is something that comes to mind as when if you walked into any office and told somebody like, we're just gonna have this app that'll let you get into cars with strangers, right? I was just like, what? It has like all the things you should not do, right? Yeah. Like
getting
deal
into
with
cars
physical,
with strangers.
Right? Just safety, strangers.
Every child was told, do not get in a car with a stranger.
With real world kind of products and services that are hard to scale, regulatory hurdles, all that kind of stuff. So that's a very good example of something that on the face of it, if you just, tell 100 people you have this idea, 99 times you're going to hear that's a terrible idea, don't do it. And yet, right,
this is commonplace
here we are
now.
and it's a massively successful company, billions of dollars valuation, all that kind of stuff. So it's I guess a piece of evidence, right, that sometimes these bad ideas are great investments. Yeah. So it can happen, and so there are, as you're looking, as you're investing, right, you have to be kind of very intellectually honest about what it is, what it does, how it works, what the market's like, and what are your reasons to believe that this will eventually be successful. And so we do that kind of thought exercise with all the cases that we look at and really kind of battle it out intellectually of like, if it does succeed, how massively successful will it be? What are the reasons it might not succeed? And you have to be very clear-eyed about why it might not, so that obviously, so you can make good investments, right? But also so that you can kind of refine your thinking and be intellectually honest later and evaluate whether you made the kind of right decision and were unlucky, or maybe you just made the wrong decision but were lucky, right? Yeah. I mean, between you and me, I'd just be lucky. But you need to be able to separate those two and kind of hone and advance your thinking as you go.
That's true. I like the example of Uber, which went from a kind of wacky idea to a name that is on the level with Google. If someone says, let's get an Uber in America, that can mean we're just getting a taxi. It doesn't have to be that. It was a startup that they really drove behind it and they pushed their idea, but they were also able to identify that as strange as it sounds, and it does sound a bit odd at first, especially when you're pitching it, there was pull for it. There were people who did want that kind of informal, I just need a lift and I'm happy to do that on an app and come through and travel.
And sometimes there is a kind of technological shift that enables something, and in this case I think mobile was that shift where suddenly we all had these devices in our control that kind of enabled you to location enabled and all that kind of stuff, so that you could orchestrate this kind of business, right? Like it wouldn't have worked in the Web 1.0 days, for example. So there was, there was a reason to believe that this might now work, but I mean, even then it was a massive lift, no pun intended, which was another of the category.
I guess that makes sense. And I guess that was one of the things that made it successful. They were really on it and taking advantage of the technology of their time. Everyone had a smartphone and it was integrated, and it's now part of our daily life, carrying around this little computer in our pocket. So to be part of that, to be integrated, that really, I guess, helped push the idea forward. And that's for any startup, by taking advantage of the technology that is out there, especially if you're first, maybe it is potentially a bad idea, but if you're taking advantage and the signal is there, it can grow. And it kind of leads on to my next point is, for Baltic startups or for any smaller startup, entering the US market can be quite scary because there are some very well-funded Silicon Valley companies out there, and it can be terrifying, a bit of a David and Goliath. I'm ready to take on this giant, or am I? And you need to act fast. You always have to have it in the back of your mind, as you mentioned, that am I going to go global? And if you're worried, you might delay that until it's too late. So is there any advantages these scrappy teams from smaller markets they can leverage to really enter that market when the timing is right, not putting it off, and survive against some of these big giants in the US?
Indeed. It is scary, like you said, but there are things that work to your advantage, and there's kind of things to mitigate the advantages of the Silicon Valley native startups, if you will. So a few of those that I can think of are the sort of cost effectiveness and the scrappiness and the inventiveness of our local founders and teams. There's definitely something to be said for that. The investment money goes way further in the region still. So that's one thing for sure.
A bang for buck kind of thing.
Yeah. Your money goes further. And so again, in the startup world, survival is everything, right? And so you have more runway, you have more time to, kind of find that product market fit and scale and so forth. So that's one thing. The other thing I would point to is that nowadays the world is ever more connected, and we do now, over the years, we have more and more of a network of sort of Baltic operators who are in Silicon Valley, who have been there. And so, I'm trying to be a connector in that world as well, right? To bring access to folks and connect them with people, potential customers, potential investors, and so forth. And so we are, as a region, kind of more connected to the Valley now than we have in the past. And that's an advantage as well. We do have now in Latvia, we now have 3 VC funds for early stage, right? So there is dedicated capital for enabling early stage startups. So there's support. So there's certain things that are there to kind of level out the playing field. That being said, like another thing that I would definitely encourage folks, especially if they're just like getting into the journey, right? Come visit. Come visit. There's nothing quite as experiencing it for yourself. All the secondary sources, your blogs and podcasts and videos and YouTube and Snapchat, and it's not the same thing. And so if you haven't been, if you're just like looking into it, coming out there, again, connecting with the community, happy to do that. Connect folk, get out there, I'll connect you with folks and just, meet the local operators, meet the local funders, just walk around, walk down the street and just see how pervasive the startup scene and conversation is in the area. See Steve Jobs' house, see Apple, see, Meta and all these places and just talk to local founders and kind of just get energized. There's a tremendous amount of energy in that one region.
No, that's good. I guess it doesn't have to be scary. You have to know what your own advantages are and then just put yourself out there in a way. There are connections you can take advantage of. There are people who are willing to invest and help you along. And if you know what your strengths are, there will be connections, there will be networks that you can tap into to help give you an advantage out there with local knowledge, local resources that will know kind of how to help you out, how to help you enter that market. So it's not so much this big battle. You have some of the resources available to these big established startups and you can get a foot in the door and you can grow from that, but you do have to put yourself out there. You do have to say visit, you do have to go to those sort of networks that are available in Latvia. There's venture capitals over there, but you have to really put yourself out there. And if you believe in your product and you have those metrics to back it up, it doesn't have to be scary. You can do it.
Indeed. Yeah.
Indeed. And I'd also like to add a bit of a spotlight. So we have mentioned your background in engineering and tech, and you've worked at big companies like Twilio. But is there anything you've maybe learned or any moments that left an impression that you'd like to maybe share with the audience from your time in tech that you think would be valuable? I know there's an awful lot you can talk about. It could be its own episode. But just for the audience from a tech perspective, stuff you've seen and how you've seen things change, is there anything you think like a nice little golden nugget of advice you can add?
So it was definitely life-changing journey. I spent 9 years at Twilio. Joined when it was a 200-person startup. And for me at the time, it was like a massive, my previous startups were like, 10 people, 5 people. And 200 felt like, oh my God, this is so huge, but it was still a startup nonetheless. And, I was part of that journey from 200 people to, I think we got to 9,000 at some point, IPO of course. And the thing to me that was really different was the people. And so I said it at the time. I say it still today. I came for the product and I stayed for the people. Prior to Twilio, 2 startups before Twilio, I had built another startup, and for that I had built a voice dialing system, to orchestrate phone calls and scale those phone calls, and that involved a lot of work. Which once I saw Twilio, I was like, oh my God, I could have built this in a weekend. Where was it? Of course, it wasn't around when I was doing those things. And so I immediately knew, and speaking of like product market fit, right? Like that's right there is, I saw that product market fit right there. It was like, oh my God, as a builder, I could have done this, this, instead of that previous startup, that would have been like a weekend project and it would be done. And so when I kind of saw Twilio, that was okay, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I get it. Like I'm in. That was the impetus. But then once I saw the team, and to this day, it's true. It's like that was a truly unique team, uniquely qualified, uniquely talented, uniquely passionate. Every single person there could have and could have been and most likely is now a founder or a founder level person at another startup or a technology leader. These were all super energetic people. And so, if you're out there building your startup, that is how your people should be talking about your team, right? That is what you're looking to build, is assembling that kind of a group of individuals, energetic, talented, passionate, really out there to change the world. And I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it's a really big part of a great startup journey, is having that team, being part of that team and advancing that team.
I mean, it goes back to what you mentioned at the start. A lot of it is leveraging those teams, that local capital, the human potential, and putting those parts together. You build that good team and you can build a good product. And if the signals are there, you have the team to back you up and follow those through, and presenting yourself to a global market, going global is a lot less scary because you'll have a good team, a product, you see the signals, they're concrete. And then when you go out and talk to people in the US trying to take it to this big market, they will see the value in the product itself. They will see you have something that they themselves want to be part of, and it makes it a lot less scary, a lot easier.
Indeed. And then, one thing that's very true about especially early stage startups, it's the team is the most constant aspect, right? You're going to pivot, you're going to refine your ICP, you're going to change your direction. But if you have that critical mass of passionate, talented people, chances are much higher, and again, no guarantees here, but they're much higher that you will kind of pivot into something that works and kind of will yourself into success together.
That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are coming to the end of our time, but I did want to ask you, how can our listeners learn more about you, your work, maybe what you talk about, your insights, and any other resources you might want to share with them that they might find useful?
Absolutely. So I'm all over LinkedIn. I have the privilege of being the /Ģirts. So of all the Latvians out there, I am the /Ģirts on LinkedIn. So you can definitely contact me there. It's probably actually the best way to do
see
so.
What you're doing, any events you're speaking at, and it'll all be on LinkedIn.
I do a lot of things. I invest, I consult. I'm a regional director for Latvian-American Chamber of Commerce. So all of my work streams have this through line of Baltic, US cooperation and advancement. And if those words, Baltic roots, global ambition, if that resonates with you as a founder, as a funder, definitely get in touch and let's see how we can advance this mission together.
I like that. That was a very good ending note. Lovely. So yeah, thank you, Ģirts. We'll close off this episode. And once again, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your insights and all your experiences and all the knowledge you've gained from your years of work in startups and in tech. And if anyone does want to learn more about you or Baltic investments and Baltic tech and developments, they can follow you on your LinkedIn. And if you'd like to know more about us and building top-notch quality products, you can, of course, follow TestDevLab. We have a knowledge base with blogs, white papers, and, of course, more episodes of Tech Effect. So, Ģirts, for the third time, thank you for being with us today. And thank you to the audience for joining us. And I'll see you all in the next episode.